call the meeting to order and want to ask if there's any adjustments or additions to the agenda. Nope. Good. Then I would like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda of tonight's meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Agenda approved. Next, approval of the minutes of our recent meeting of April 9th, 2024. I'd like to entertain a motion.
And I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes approved. Public comment. Did anybody sign up for public comment? All right. All right. We have 3 people sign up for public comment. So if I can ask, know if I can read this right. Lexi Farmer. If you can come up to the microphone.
This would be for general public comment at this time, so if it's
Okay.
related to the item, we should hold.
We can hold that.
And then if there's no one else signed up for general public comment, I wanted to give our town manager an opportunity to introduce himself to y'all, since this is his first Board of Adjustment meeting he's attending.
Okay, so we'll basically wait with the signed up because they're all from the airport. So we'll wait till that comes up. And then I would like to have you introduce yourself here.
Good evening, Board of Adjustment members. It's nice to see you all. Matt McCarahan, Town Manager here in the town of Mills River. This is the first meeting of the Board of Adjustment since my tenure started in late July. So just about 5 months in. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just want to thank you all for the work that you all do. It's a very important job serving on the Board of Adjustment. And I just want to thank you for what you do for the community. I'll be here for the rest of the meeting. I'm happy to answer any questions now or again at the end. Again, there are a couple items up here I may also be able to speak on that'll be coming before you. But for those that don't know me, I'll just quickly provide a little bit of feedback, a little bit of background on myself. Born and raised in Eastern North Carolina, but most recently came from the village of Pinehurst, where I spent the last few years as their strategic planning and performance organizational performance director focused on strategic planning and performance. And so that's where my background is, and that's where it lies. And so over the last 5 months, and as we continue moving forward, you're going to be hearing quite a bit of news about how we're continuing to move the organization forward in both in its strategic planning and its performance apparatus. So I'm very excited about it. I know that there's a lot of fun work ahead of us as an organization. You all are a vital part of that work moving forward. In fact, you're going to be hearing from me even probably tomorrow via email about some exciting things that will be coming forward with our boards and committees. But as I mentioned, I just want to thank you again for this opportunity, and I look forward to working with you in this capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. That closes the public comment. Then next we go to new business, evidentiary hearing SUP 22401. Chad Harding minor special use permit request in the light industrial zoning district 701 Old Fanning Bridge Road. PIN number 964-239-7277. And I am requested to read the quasi-judicial procedure statement, which is a long story. This is a quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing, That means it's like a court hearing. North Carolina state law sets specific procedures and rules concerning how this board must make its decisions. These rules are different from other types of land use decision, like rezoning cases. The board's discretion is limited. The board must base its decision only upon competent, material, relevant, and substantial evidence in the record. The quasi-judicial decision is not a popularity contest where opinions are considered. It's a decision constrained by the standards in the Mills River Code of Ordinances and based on the facts presented. If you will be speaking, please focus on the facts and ordinance standards, not personal preference or opinion. Participation in this hearing is limited. The meeting is open to the public. Everyone is welcome to watch. Parties with standing have rights to participate fully in the hearing. Parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Parties are limited to the applicant, the town of Mills River, and individuals who can prove they will suffer special damages as a result of this decision. Other individuals may serve as witnesses when called on by the board. Witness testimony should be limited to facts and not opinions. General public comment is not permitted during the hearing. All witnesses must swear or affirm their testimony. In one moment, the clerk will administer oaths for all individuals who intend to act as a witness or provide testimony. Next, I would like to ask a motion to open the evidentiary hearing at this time.
Move to open the hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. The announcement of the minor special use permit application. Basically, Chad Harding, minor special use permit in the light industrial zone, 701 Old Fanning Bridge Road. Question for the board members. Does anybody have special personal knowledge upon which they may rely that is not in the record, i.e. site visit, internet research, talking to the applicant or neighbors, etc.? None?
I looked it up on Google Maps, so I know exactly where it was, but that was all.
All right. Next, recognition of any person wishing to petition the board to act as a party with standing.
So this is the time I'll just advise that the airport folks stand up since you received public notice, and since you're an adjacent property owner, you can petition the board to have standing in this hearing, and that's where you can basically ask specific questions. So if you want to come up to the microphone and just state who you're representing and basically say why you have an interest in the subject case for the airport.
Thank you. My name is Lou Beliwise. I'm the president and CEO of the Greater Asheville Regional Airport Authority. We are here today. I brought two other co-workers with me, our chief operating officer and our VP of planning. We have concerns of how the property is currently zoned and putting residential into an area adjacent to the airport runway with a noise issue. We'll further in or just state why we're here, which is basically why we're here to listen to our facts of our concern of putting residential next to the airport.
Okay. We probably need to swear those witnesses in.
Yeah, so this isn't in our normal procedures, but basically my understanding is the board should vote to give this party standing in the hearing to act as another party in the hearing. So if you all want to take a vote to basically grant the representatives of the Asheville Airport standing in this hearing, we can then move into swearing in everyone at the same time by the clerk.
I move that we give the Asheville Airport representative standing in this meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That motion passed. So next will be the swearing in of the party.
Okay, if those that wish to speak, if you would raise your right hand, and we're just gonna act like we're putting our hand on the Bible. Do y'all swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, and the applicant as well. Okay, good.
All right. Recognition of the planning and zoning staff to present the case and enter preliminary materials into the record. Mr. Malicher.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. So staff received a minor special use application from Chad Harding, who's the principal at Harding Hubner Architects on November 11th. And the request is for permission to convert the existing second floor of the Riveter building into a single apartment unit residential dwelling for the owner to be able to be on site on the property to manage repairs due to damage and flooding from Hurricane Helene. The attachment is included as attachment A, and the appointment of agent form signed by the owner appointing Mr. Harding to represent them is included as attachment B. I'll note that the evidentiary hearing was properly noticed. We mailed public notice letters to adjacent property owners on November 29th and posted a public notice sign adjacent to the property in the right-of-way on that same day. And then we also had legal advertisements in the Hendersonville Lightning on November 27th and December 4th. So all public notice requirements have been met. The process for issuing a minor special use permit is included in your packet as well. The light industrial zoning district, specifically section 154.055C2, lists the uses that require a minor special use permit in the light industrial zoning district. This is attachment C in your packet is the light industrial zoning district description. And towards the end of that attachment, you'll see the following language. So it specifically states uses not otherwise named herein, which come within the spirit and intent of this district, light industrial, subject to a finding by the Board of Adjustment, may be allowed with a minor special use permit. And that's what has allowed the applicant to submit their application and brings us here tonight. The only other use requiring a minor special use permit in light industrial is for gasoline, oil, or fuel product wholesale storage. Again, just an overview of our light industrial zoning district. It's intended to provide a place for the location of industrial and other uses that would be incompatible with general business areas and meant to permit any use that is not inherently obnoxious to urban and rural areas because of noise, odor, smoke, light, vibration, dust, use or storage of dangerous chemicals or substances, etc. Again, all that language and the complete description of the light industrial zoning district is included as attachment C. As part of the application that the applicant submitted, there are two standards that they claim, which basically is that the proposed use will not adversely affect the health and safety of persons in the area because the proposal is for the conversion of space within an existing building. Again, that's one of our minor special use permit standards. No adverse impact on health and safety of surrounding properties and people. And the applicant also claims on their application the proposed use will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to nearby property or public improvements, again, because the proposed dwelling is within an existing structure and does not need new utilities, site access, or other site improvements. So that's a quick overview. Again, the requirements for a minor special use permit, we just covered those first two. So I'm on the second page of the staff report right now at the bottom. We just covered the first two. So the board has to make the findings that there's no adverse impact to health and safety of persons in the area, and that the proposed use is not detrimental to public health and welfare. Beyond that, the light industrial zoning district requires two additional findings. Those are labeled as 3 and 4. So proposed use would not involve the manufacture, use in manufacturing, storage on, in, or above the ground of the premises of any type of chemical in any form, which due to its nature is known to be hazardous to human health due to radiation, toxicity, or carcinogens. The additional finding for light industrial minor special use permits is the proposed use must meet all dimensional signage, buffer, and parking requirements of the town zoning code. and then I won't go into the final minor special use permit findings at this time. But the zoning code states anytime this board considers a special use permit, we also need, if applicable, to make findings of fact that there's satisfactory ingress and egress to the property, there's provision of off-street parking, traffic flow, et cetera, utilities, buffering, open spaces, and that the building and structures meet zoning code requirements. Again, it's at the board's discretion whether all of those are applicable. And if you do feel some of them are applicable, you can make a finding of fact for that when the time's appropriate. Again, appropriate conditions can be imposed or placed on a minor special use permit, but they have to be related to conformance with town codes and development requirements. That's the summary of my report. So I submit into the record attachment A, which is the minor special use permit application, sub 2401. Attachment B, which is the appointment of agent form. Attachment C, which is the light industrial zoning ordinance excerpt. Attachment D, which is a site plan provided by the applicant. Attachment E, which is a vicinity map, just a GIS aerial view, staff included in your packet for reference. And then attachment F is the certificate of mailing the public notice letters stating we met notice requirements. And that's the conclusion of my summary, and that's all the evidence I have to enter into the record.
Very good. Thank you for that. We next would like to recognize the applicant to agree or object to the planning and zoning staff exhibits. So if the applicant wants to come forward and introduce yourself.
Yes, good evening. I'm Chad Harding. I'm with Harding Hooner. The owner here is Eric McLeod. He's the owner of the River. That's the building that we're speaking about. So, yeah.
Any agreement or objection to the exhibits that were just presented?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions for the planning and zoning staff right now? You are allowed to sit down, but you'll
Sure.
be coming back very soon. Mr. Moore?
So this is is this like a temporary
No,
use?
but right now we're talking about questions for the zoning administrator
Okay,
staff.
none for the administrators.
Okay.
Looks good.
All right. Then recognition of the applicant to present evidence and testimony. Is there any specific evidence you want to present or any testimony you want to give supporting this application?
Beyond what we wrote in the application in terms of the rationale behind it, would you like me to reiterate any of that, or are you talking about additional evidence? I don't want to be redundant. to what you guys have
Additional or supporting what is in the application?
Sure. Well, I think maybe just to arc over what we did write in the application. Certainly, Helene created a disaster on everyone, right? The Riveter was not exempt from that. They took in about 3 feet of water. Eric McLeod it was immediately on site to start bringing the business back. They recognized that their presence there was going to be required to really bring the business back, to be able to be on site, to really work the business back into something that was able to be back into the community. And they had an upper level that was underutilized, and they wanted to repurpose that to be able to have certainly a place to be there on site, to do the repairs, to manage getting everything back online, and then to be able to be more present on ongoing management of the business. So that ushered in the idea of taking this existing space, which is already has all the utilities that we would need for an apartment loft, really for the owner to be able to be present and be active in management, which was a change of function for him. He was working in conjunction with someone else, but he wanted to be on site moving forward. So that was the precipitating nature of wanting to create a space where they could be right there on site to manage full time. You want to jump in?
Sure. And I would add that we were out of town working on another project. We've lived in this area for a long time, but we were working on a project that was similar to something here for children. And when we realized we needed to move back to this area to work on this full time, that it was going to require significant adjustments in business operations from a financial standpoint. So we're having to put very significant amount of money into this building, and my wife and I will be running it, managing, as opposed to hiring a number of different staff that are all running it. So we will be running ourselves. Property for different fines at times, and also housing. We're building utilized, and we need to kind of boots on the ground to get this business back up and running for the community as the community hub and place for that everyone loves. And it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take specifically a lot of physical work as well to come get it. So that was the thought.
Okay. Thank you. At this time, we can have questions from board members to the applicants. And one question at a time.
Mine was answered,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I have it in my mind, because if you just looked at this straight off, you're saying, I want to have an apartment where I work, but you're not going to work 24 hours a day. But then you explain it's challenging right now to find a place to rent. Is that your basic rationale behind wanting to do this? Just the availability of housing?
The availability and the cost and the amount of money that we're approaching with us, and make a lot of money, put it in people with less money if they have to buy a house from here or two. So we don't have a place to live. So that's why we do this. Mid pool, 4 walls. That's going to cost a lot of money to outfit it where it's going to work.
How long do you anticipate it needing?
Yeah, we will probably would hold on to it for as long as we own it.
So that it's not be an ongoing charm of the building once you're out of it. You know, your zoning doesn't permit residential, and I think the airport that's given is a part of it. I just have concerns about something where someone comes in and says, well, we want to do this because of that. And then they move on, and all of a sudden you turn around and find them in. You know, or except what Neil River's working on right now is taking all the zones. That's why I'm asking, and I realize you don't have a crystal ball, and you can't say it's gonna be 8 months, 12 months, God help you 2 years to do what you need to do.
The only thing that I could add to that is when when I put up all the money to build this building, personally, these two activities mean more to me. I mean, these are the activities that I grew my life on. So I started biking and climbing, as a kid, dad, and so I don't foresee wanting to just, either sell the business or not be dedicated to the business. And so it's a mission that my wife and I want to do, and I've always wanted to do it, and now we'll be managing it. And so there's no intent to rent this for money. It would be something that we would live in, or if we did have a manager, we'd always come back to that one spot. So, yeah, no intent to create an investment type of rental for this place.
Other questions?
I have one, please forgive me. So y'all do biking and rock climbing? What is your business exactly?
It is a indoor rock climbing gym and a biking facility with jump lines. It's got a fitness facility, and it's a community hub for kind of outdoor sports and outdoor sports training. It kind of meshes in with the area that we live in. But an outlet for a lot of people. We have over 1,000 members.
Did that answer your question? Questions?
Sure.
I have one question. You're referring to the damage done by Helene. That's understandable. But you're not looking at this as a temporary, and temporary maybe 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. You're looking at this as a permanent living quarter in the building. Is that correct?
Well, if we were going to invest the money to upfit the space, I don't foresee dismantling that at any point. It's gonna require investment. And if we're continuing to manage the building, then to manage the property, then I think it's it was for a very short period of time, I think we would say.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Thank you. Next, we would like to recognize the other folks that have already signed up and were sworn in, which is the Airport Authority.
Thank you very much. Again, my name is Lou Blau, Vice President and CEO of the Airport Authority. In light of what I've heard this evening, our concern is twofold. One, Mills River just went through an extensive land plan use, creating some of these new areas, one of them being the light industrial. And if we start giving variances to what the county has done, it sets a precedent for future down the road. Second concern is that it is close to the airport with the noise, everything that is generated from the airport. And under the permit, the minor special use permit requirements, the proposed use will not adversely affect the health and safety of persons residing or working in the neighborhood of the proposed use. Noise is a significant issue and a health concern for anyone. The Federal Aviation Administration sets up noise limits around airports and tries to limit residential use around the airport because we don't want, and the federal government doesn't want people being hurt by noise from early in the morning to late at night and all around the clock. That being said, we understand what Hurricane Helene has done. And if this is a temporary situation to help the Riveter, and Riveter is a very important business to the community, especially to Mills River. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have had some competitions and events at the Riveter that brings people from all over the country to their facility. It's good for our community, good for the airport, good for Mills River. So in light of that, in light of the temporary use that they're asking for, we'd be inclined with some certain conditions or limitations going down the road. And I'm not sure if this is this panel, this board that makes those limitations, or if it's Mills River Town Council. One, if this board decides to move forward with it, we would ask that the airport be granted a navigation easement that allows noise and things to participate above their facility and doesn't hold town of Mills River or the airport liable for noise or health issues or stuff like that that could be generated from the noise and impact on this facility, since it's not set up to be a residential area. And then again, same thing, the navigation easement, what we're looking for, some type of a commitment for long-term, that if they did decide to put it in play for short-term rentals, again, the liabilities that come with that for the town and for the airport could be immense if people are using it for, for short-term rentals down the road, because it is residential in an area that's not meant to be next to the airport. But again, we would be willing to allow them under the circumstances and afford them the opportunity to be able to do this, to get their business back up and running, because it is important to the community. Our concerns is just their concerns for health-wise and our concerns for a long time of what they would ultimately do with the property if they decided to do something different from what they're asking for today. Other than that, again, having residential next to the airport, we just, again, have concerns. Several months ago, it may have been a little longer than that, I know there was a request for some road changes that the DOT wanted to do. They were denied because of the public nuisance of what that would be. If you take that same public nuisance that is already created by Linamar, by all the trucks and all that with with Federal Express and all that stuff, again, just the noise in the location and the proximity to what they were proposing to be a residential area, it just has a concern for all of us. And again, goes necessary that in our knowing what aircraft noise and other noise does, the health concern around that area under the variance request for light industrial use. So again, under the circumstances with Hurricane Helene, we'd be more tolerant of it with some certain circumstances that come along with it, because we would like to see their business succeed and keep on thriving for our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be happy to answer any questions. I mean, I'd ask my staff if they have any questions, if they.
Yeah, you have two other people on the list.
Yeah,
All right.
there you go. My prerogative, I guess.
All right.
Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Go ahead.
This structure, how far from like the landing, the runways and stuff? With them living there cause any direct harm to the airport still?
No.
No. And listening to you, there are some type of legal documents or waivers they can sign that gives them, that waives y'all the town from liabilities.
That's correct. It's called a navigation easement. It's regularly like an easement, but it's for airspace above someone's property, knowing that aircraft will be flying, creating noise, some general, exhaust pollutants, that type of stuff. And they accept it and they know that when they're getting into it.
Have you all had conversations with the applicant about this already?
We have not. We were brought just from the public notice that this was out here, that had no knowledge of this until recently.
Now, I think you may have misspoken because you were saying residential housing of this type. I'm under the impression, and I think the gentleman that made that presentation, this is going to be like a one-bedroom apartment.
Correct. It's still residential within the
Right,
area
it's
adjacent to
not-
Neighbor. No, it's not a housing project. No, I understand that. No, it's residential within an existing commercial building.
But then was they could do it right here, so. I don't get that far, if it's noisy sometimes. It's like, it's, you know, but just to be, so that you both understand, all
Yes.
three sides and.
Yes.
Thank you.
Questions? I have a question.
Yeah, any other comment?
Do you have that, what's the navigation
Navigation easement.
easement with Sierra Nevada?
We do not, because that's a business.
Okay. Understand. Um,
A perfect example is Henderson County approved Taproot Dairy Residential Community.
mhm.
There is a the Henderson County required the developer to put a navigation easement on that property because of the residential adjacent to the airport.
Okay, that's good information
It's good to know.
to have. I'm a little concerned in a way that we're mixing up things. You're concerned about the noise for a residence, but when there's 1,000 people coming to compete, that's not a problem
It's not being
at
used.
the River Third.
At that point, it's not, we're not complaining about the noise
Okay,
coming
no.
from them.
yeah,
We're concerned with us being a noise liability to them as a residential property that they are turning an apartment into. And what they could possibly do from a legal standpoint against the airport, against Mills River for approving what that becomes. And then somewhere down the road, there was an apartment there. If the property eventually does get sold and someone else uses
Mhm.
it, again, not knowing that it's next to an airport or whatever, again, it could be a liability issue just from a noise and health and safety standpoint.
so a navigation agreement would pretty much settle that
Yes,
beforehand.
not foolproof, anything can go to court,
Really?
but the owners of the property and future owners know that there's a navigation easement in place. They know that it's next to an airport. They know that there's noise and other pollutants generated from it, and they're accepting that when they sign the navigation easement.
He follows the property, not the owner.
It is in perpetuity on the property. That's
Yeah.
correct.
So it's recorded, like the
It
courthouse.
is a recorded easement, yes.
Yes, sir.
The other remark you made was about precedents. Well, obviously with special use permits, you could look at it as precedents, but we look at each individual case on its own. So we're not setting precedents with issuing special use
enough.
permits. Other questions?
I have one thought, and if I'm out of line, let me know.
But is it a question for,
Question for him, yes.
Yeah, good.
On the navigational agreements, suppose a plane crashes into this building. Does that absolve the airport of all liability, or would the people have a recourse?
Never been asked that question, but I would assume that the navigation easement is made aware of the inherent dangers and issues and concerns about what's flying over their house. So I'm gonna say probably not from a liability, because there's many reasons why an airplane could crash. And that would leave the injured party to be able to, do some kind of legal action against that. This is more for noise, and I will turn to my COO and see if he knows anything.
We did bring a sample. Excuse my voice. We did bring a sample of navigation easement, and specifically it talks about or other effects associated or with an incident to the normal operation of an aircraft taking off. So it says that, it basically says that there is an inherent thing that could happen with an incident of an aircraft taking off, or otherwise operating at or in the vicinity of the airport, or on, over, or in the vicinity of the property. So it doesn't really take away liability from the airport. Generally, it falls on to the airline, and the NTSB makes a determination. But this basically states that they acknowledge that the airspace above is used for the airport and aeronautical use.
Keeping in mind that we don't operate the airplanes. So someone who operates the airplane could be liable to them.
Yeah,
If
okay.
something were to happen, but we couldn't be brought into that because it's inherent knowledge of what's going on at the airport.
Okay.
As a recently former airplane owner, thanks to Helene.
You
I
must be
carried
down in
insurance,
Hendersonville.
yes, sir. I carried insurance, liability insurance, and that is to cover, and heaven forbid, I don't make it back to the airport.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions at this time for the person withstanding? No? Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
Recognition of any other person wishing to make public comments? We don't have any other people, so. Next is preliminary discussion by the board with input from any party or witness the chair recognizes.
I would ask, Mr. Malachek, is there a way to put a condition on this that it cannot be rented, that it can't be, any kind of a rental property? It would have to be, you don't really necessarily want to say owner occupied, cause at some point in time, you may have a different manager who wants to stay there. You may not, you may never, but that's different than a rental property, in my opinion. I get fuel here in Mills River, at the gas house, and somebody lives there. And that's, you're right there to keep an eye on things. And there's lots of benefits to that. I see it in Asheville where people live upstairs and work downstairs in those apartments. I know this is a totally different animal, but I can understand that. But is there a way to restrict the possibility of this being a rental property?
I don't think there's a way to legally restrict the use of the dwelling. The town has no ordinances concerning whether properties are rented, owner occupied, or short-term rentals. Again, conditions should be within the spirit and intent of the ordinance in the district, but light industrial being business focused, a possible condition that may echo what you're asking is that the dwelling be used for business purposes, by whether by an employee, owner, or et cetera.
By the business.
Directly related to the business?
Correct, because light industrial is about business and industrial uses. And so again, the board's considering this additional request, but I think one of the standards, if I can find it, is basically that it's within the spirit and intent of the district. And if the intent of the district is business focused, I think it would be appropriate that the dwelling be related to the business entity on the property. I think it'd be a little more of a stretch in terms of limiting rental.
Okay. Sound reasonable?
Yep.
Make sense?
Any other discussion right now?
So that, I was gonna ask that portion. So we have, some requirements we have to find 1, 2, 3, 4, possibly 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? And in the language, it talks about, like reference y'all to the discussion under the ordinance, you mentioned that the spirit and the intent of the district. So we also have to not only find the requirements, but we have to find that it's in the spirit and the intent of the district.
Yes, that's not a specific finding of fact the ordinance spells out, but that should be a factor of the board's decision in granting or denying the permit request.
While my heart certainly hopes y'all change my mind, I don't know that I'm there, that the residential apartment is in the spirit and intent of the industrial zoning district. I hope y'all change my mind. Not quite there yet on that one point.
Well, the question is, for discussion here is the noise, which is really what we're concerned about. Is that not detrimental to the people that come there to enjoy exercising and rock climbing or even next door at the brewery to drink a beer, but it is detrimental when you live there.
I would agree that we do also have to consider that, but the statute does require us to find that it's in the spirit and the intent of the district as well. Proposed usage. In addition to what you're talking about as far as the health effects, welfare, injuries of the property and improvements in the neighborhood. As I'm reading statutes under discussion, that's Mr. Melichek just advised.
I,
Ours,
Mhm.
when you start with industrial district attachment C, there's a lot of things you can and cannot do with this type of thing, but under one of them, under secondary,
Attachments.
I'm on attachment C. It looks like this to begin with. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you go down to secondary, you define this, which is incidental supplement to the principal use of the property and may include structures, so on and so forth. And if you come down to number 7, it says sales, training, and meeting facilities related to principal use, including overnight lodging.
Good find.
I use the fine clarification.
From,
It doesn't say, you put people up for 2 months to take a course, but if they let them lay their head on a pillow for one night, it gets real tricky as to what you don't. So that's something else to take into mind, because, I think sometimes in trying to respect what the law says, we go too far, because it would annoy the heck out of me as I'm learning how to climb a wall, as it's not gonna happen. Or opposed to someone sitting there at night and going to sleep. I just don't see the difference. Where I see the difference is them making money on your part. That's what I'm looking for. Because that is them setting up it to be a residential situation in an industrial zoning district. And that's, I think, where we all have to feel our ways through it.
I have one more question for staff. What she just highlighted, number 7, the secondary use, would this fall into a secondary use that even requires a special use permit?
I looked at that specifically and I felt the minor special use permit was required because again, in my interpretation, this wasn't overnight lodging relating to sales training or
I agree.
facilities. Yeah.
Starting.
Correct. And I'm just saying, in my opinion, I didn't feel comfortable issuing a zoning permit, saying that they would just qualify as that secondary use, that they specifically met that. And that's why I directed the applicant to apply via the minor special use permit, if that was your question.
Right.
And if the chair will allow, I'll make one additional statement.
Please.
This is unusual because usually special use permits are requesting a higher impact use in a lower impact area. Think of the townhome project. Although that was a major special use permit. This is almost the opposite, where there's a lower impact use being requested in a higher impact area. And again, just to clarify the findings of fact, the way the ordinance is written is that this use, I know there's been some discussion about the effect on the users of the potential dwelling. But the ordinance is really focused on how does this use affect others? It specifically says, you know, the safety of persons working in the neighborhood, property or public improvements in the neighborhood. It does not specifically highlight public health and safety of the users of this request. Again, it's a different type of request, so I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, and reading that, and after you pointed that out to me, I mean, I definitely believe we can get there, that I can get there at least in the spirit.
Yeah, it's all, in all respects.
Mhm. Okay,
Yeah, I
Any-
think with the easement in place that protects the airport, the town. I've lived on a SAC base back when airplanes burned water. So I know you can get used to living next to a runway if that's something you know going into it. The runway was there first, so, you know, if you don't like the noise, don't move there. And I think that's pretty well spelled out in the easement, which will be following the property. I do think that the condition should be there that, it's a direct, it's directly related to the business being operated. So that would be my thoughts on what would make me comfortable with it. Good, I succeeded. Just wait till after next Thursday night.
all right.
I'll really be using it then. Okay, so the residency there, the residential use there is directly related to the business, as in the owner or the owner's agent, should at some point in time they decide to bring a manager in who would live there. It wouldn't be a non-related use to the business, as in somebody who is short-term rental or renting it for a year to somebody who has no relationship to the business.
And
Does
I
that
don't
make
think
sense?
we have the ability to coordinate Mr. Belichick. We don't have ordinances or anything that regulate.
We can make it related to the business, right? Or-
Correct. So I would advise against a condition that says it can't be rented.
Right,
But I think
And use-
because the light industrial district is business focused, and because we're looking at the spirit and intent of the ordinance in the district, I think in a condition that the dwelling be related to business use or occupied by, I mean, the words you used, you know, someone working in or managing the business, I think that can be appropriate because it addresses the dwelling's conformance with an industrial business district.
But
but
even if we put that in, I can think of a very easy way to say, I work here, I watch it every night when I go to sleep, and when I wake up, I go to my other job.
Pretty-
So, you know, we can make that a big thing, but I don't think you're gonna hold ground with that
And-
very long.
But in a situation like that, they're directly related to the business.
Well-
So that's okay. And if they tried to complain about the airport noise or something related to it being a short-term rental, well, you know,
There we
we
have
got
the
the easement.
navigation easement.
we've also got the condition that it has to be related to the business, so.
We can put that in, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Judging it, truly.
Sure.
All right. Any more discussion or questions to any of the people involved?
I
Because
do have a question. The navigation easement, would that be, if that is a condition, that would have to be presented to the town before the permit could be issued, right? If that were a condition,
Would that have to come before council? Okay.
Comment on that, but yeah, you know, if someone is, whoever is requiring the, addition, what we come from, when we provide that copy, give the applicant the opportunity to review with their attorney and speak to even, you know, we're open to having those discussions, but overall, yeah. So I know in Henderson County, we have Root, It changed from industrial to residential. It passed through planning and zoning, and ultimately that condition was placed upon developer at the county commission meeting. Quite, again, I don't know how the river process works.
I mean, again, I would defer to our airport representatives, but I would think as long as the town is named in the easement, we would be covered unless there's a need for the town to execute the easement.
It would
Yes.
be, yeah, it's giving you access really basically to
Yeah.
the overplay.
Yeah.
So it really used to be part of it, but it really would be already. And technically, it doesn't even have to go before anybody, if the applicant is willing and voluntarily willing to sign one and go forward with it, then it's the effort.
Just to build on that, I'm less concerned about the town being named in the easement because again, the party withstanding with the potential adverse impacts is the airport. I think if the airport wants to name the town in the easement, that's fine, but I don't think that's necessary for the town to execute the easement, and that would rise to the level of potentially getting council to review it or authorizing the manager to
But
sign.
to
No, but we would
navigate-
have a copy of it before the permit's approved.
Correct. So if we move forward with that, if the minor special use permit was approved with that condition, obviously we would execute the approval order with the chair. And then basically before I issue a zoning permit for construction, I would make sure all those conditions are met. Correct.
Any more discussion, questions?
I have one question for the applicant. Are you good with everything you're hearing the airport
Well,
say?
that's what I want. You know, obviously, an easement is a legal document that would need to be, whether it has any additional items to the document other than. Don't think that there's significant health effects from being south from the airport. And, you know, and so I would like to maybe see some evidence of significant health effects from the airport at 1,000 feet before I'd want to encumber a very nice piece of property that recently from a neighboring location. So, here is the option for the three. So there may be some financial impact from having these. Right now, to have one residential location encumber the entire business and the entire 15 acres of easement that didn't exist prior. And unless it's just a really simple kind of thing, people probably wouldn't be a drawback from a real estate standpoint to want to sign it. Something we'd have to look at.
The understanding, the only reason we're having to have this discussion is because you were putting in a special permit to ask for something that it's not already, it's not allowed to be. Us. The only reason we have to have this discussion.
Okay. Any more discussion before we close the evidence portion of the hearing? So in other words, any more questions to,
So we put a condition on it that we have to have an easement if they're not willing to sign an easement.
Then I don't issue the zoning permit
Yeah.
for construction
So we
of the
either-
dwelling.
that's
So understand we're
conditional.
forcing them to sign it as our condition.
That's
If they
correct.
don't, let's go to court and they figure it out.
That's correct.
Any more discussion? Any other questions? Then I would like to entertain a motion to close the evidence portion of the hearing. And then we start the deliberation of the board.
Oh.
Oh, so, sorry. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Closed. Thank you. Okay,
So I think we're discussing this as far as one of the conditions of the easement. I think the way we word condition is agreed, once agreed upon, not necessarily, but we're going to wait till agreed upon their attorneys. And present it to
the,
just have to put agreed upon easement.
Basically, it's conditional. That's one of the conditions. But what we have to do now is continue our deliberations and make findings of facts.
So, hearing the reluctance of the applicant, do we want to, normally with conditions, both parties agree, or the parties are agreed before we move forward, correct? Or is that's not necessary? So we
I
can
don't
go ahead
think
and move forward with all the conditions, et cetera, and any findings of fact are based on satisfaction of the conditions.
Well, we got to come up with the
Yeah.
findings of facts,
Mm-hmm.
vote on those, and then finally vote to approve the minor special use permit with the conditions as da 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 da. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion. I move that the proposed use will not adversely affect the health and safety of persons residing or working in the neighborhood of the proposed use.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed.
I will make another motion that the proposed use will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or public improvements in the neighborhood.
All in favor? Aye. Passed.
But we need to go all the way through
Yeah.
the numbers.
3.
3 and 4 are required at the minimum, 5 through 10 only if the board feels it's applicable.
I'll make another motion.
Go ahead.
I move that the proposed use will not involve the manufacture, use of manufacturing, storage on, in, or above ground on the premises any type of chemical in any form which due to its nature known to be hazardous to human health due to radiation, toxicity, or known to be a carcinogen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Carcinogen.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed.
I'll make another motion that the proposed use must meet all dimensional signage, buffer, and parking requirements of town zoning code, which would be residential or business. Would be that for that zoning, so which I'm assuming it probably does. But
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passed.
And I don't believe 5 through 10 are relevant, but I'll leave that to y'all.
All right. Anybody feel that we need a motion on 5 to 10? No. Or anyone? Then what conditions do we want to impose on this minor special use permit?
The logic, okay, I propose a condition that says the residential use will be directly related to the operation of the business.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passed.
I have a motion. Condition
Go ahead.
that the two parties, the airport and the applicant, produce agreed upon easement to the town before any permits or zoning permits are issued.
And that would be the navigation easement. Avigation.
Specifically, an avigation easement.
Do we have that motion? Because that's an important
Yeah.
motion. All in favor? Aye.
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 Passed. Then I'd like to entertain a motion to approve this special use permit with the condition as agreed upon.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Special use permit with condition approved. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the second evidentiary hearing TUP 2401, temporary use permit request to use 4087 Haywood Road, pin 964-113-7972 for a FEMA temporary debris site.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize to interrupt you. If it's possible, could we move conversation out into the hallway? Thank you all.
Thanks.
Out of here. Let me find my thing again. So first thing, this is a temporary use permit. We need to entertain a motion to enter into the hearing.
I'll make a motion. We enter into the evidentiary hearing.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And just quick clarification, Chair. Temporary use permits in our zoning code don't require a formal evidentiary hearing. This is just
Oh.
a hearing of the Board of Adjustment. And so we have specific procedures written out for this that are less strict than what we just went through.
I'd like to revise and extend my motion.
Okay, so the agenda needs to be corrected then because it said evidentiary hearing.
Oh,
It did. It does.
oh.
Oh, mine
Oh,
does.
Public hearing.
It
And
must
I
be
have
been
the
changed
old
on a
one, I
previous version.
guess.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I printed off one. Okay. The chair asked the board members if there's any conflict of interest in regards to the subject property, property owner, or applicant. If necessary, vote to recuse any board member with a conflict. Anybody?
I don't feel that I have a. I live in the development, just the other side of Town Hall, where the between Town Hall and where all this stuff is being moved right now. I have not discussed it with any of my neighbors. I don't think most of them know that I'm on this board, which is okay by me. I have discussed it with one person because I'm on the board of the HOA on the second panel. And I was talking with the president the other night about something else, and he brought it up because he lives right along it. The only thing that we discussed is that we all got a letter advising us of it, and I thought, well, okay, that's necessary right now. I live on the opposite side of the neighborhood. I hear it a little, but not much. It really is not disturbing me, and I accept the fact that right now things have to be done. I want to say that neither he nor I have been contacted by any neighbors in the neighborhood, and if I had, then I just wouldn't discuss it with them. That's the way it is. It wouldn't stop me from voting yes or no, depending on the way the discussion goes. So I'll leave it up to you guys.
So it would be up to the board to decide if Ms. Brigantner needs to be recused or not.
I see no reason for refusing.
Same here. I second that.
Any reason?
No.
You live close by too.
Yeah, I know. It's not a problem.
Okay. All right. Okay. Then next, we would like to ask staff to present the case and acknowledge that public notice was provided.
Thank you, everyone. So tonight, the applicant is Marcus Jones, the engineer for Henderson County that submitted the temporary use permit. We have our town manager, Matthew McCarahan, here to speak on the applicant's behalf, also because the town executed a lease agreement for this use on this property. But the applicant technically on the form is Marcus Jones. And again, this is for the adjacent property next door to us with the following pins. I'm not going to read them out, and with the address of 4087 Haywood Road. So the temporary use permit request is to use the property as a FEMA temporary storm debris site. Obviously, this is not a listed permitted use for a neighborhood commercial zoning district, which is what the property is zoned currently. The application came in on November 25th. the application and site plan and a zoning permit application, because again, for temporary use permits, this is a totally different set of requirements from minor special use permits. It says you need to submit a zoning permit application with this request, so all of that is included as attachment A in your packet. The executed lease agreement with the town is included as attachment B, and that can provide proof that there's property owner permission for this request as well. There are very few public notice requirements for temporary use requests. So the hearing was properly noticed. The ordinance only says that there needs to be an advertisement in a paper. And so there was a single advertisement of this hearing that ran on December 4th. Getting into the discussion, the temporary use permits require the approval of the Board of Adjustments, and the process, I included an excerpt of the zoning code 154.193 as attachment C in your packet, and I'm just going to read from that, because again, it's very limited in the direction it gives the board on how to approve these and associated guidance. So the zoning code states no temporary use permit may be granted in any district for adult establishments, hazardous waste disposal facilities, or radioactive waste disposal facilities. And the FEMA temporary storm debris site does not meet those definitions. The other section of the zoning code that's applicable is the part that addresses the zoning board of adjustments duties and processes. That's 154.179D. And that states Board of Adjustment may grant a temporary use permit to allow a use not ordinarily permitted in the zoning district. And this is one of the, this next part is one of the specific asks or requirements of the zoning ordinance, provided the permit, temporary use permit, has a fixed expiration date, and the applicant satisfies any conditions imposed by the board. The applicant did not provide a fixed expiration date on the application form, so staff is recommending the expiration date mirror the lease agreement with the town, which is August 8th of 2025. And again, the zoning ordinance has no specific standards or findings of fact the Board of Adjustment has to make to issue a temporary use permit. Conditions can be imposed provided they're related to conformance with town codes or other laws and regulations. So again, we have the application and site plan as attachment A, the lease agreement as attachment B, your ordinance excerpts, including the neighborhood commercial zoning ordinance as attachment C and D, and then I just provided a vicinity map showing where the properties are as attachment E. If you have any specific questions about the operations of the site, I would direct those to our town manager, Matthew McCarahan. And when we do get to the point of discussing whether the board wants to move forward with this, there's a couple proposed or potential conditions for board consideration that staff put together that reflect items already in the lease agreement and state law requirements. That's all I have for you.
All right. Are there any questions for staff?
That's it. And I see where you're going, and I agree with you, that the lease would be the timing of it. But isn't it also stated in there somewhere, or am I dreaming, that there were a couple possibilities of extension from the 8 months and 9 months?
Yes.
In the lease agreement, there were stipulations or opportunities for extension. And so
So where that be considered if we grant the temporary?
if the lease agreement was extended, the applicant would have to come before this board again to ask for the temporary use permit to be amended with the new expiration date.
Okay.
Okay.
I have one question or comment. The lease agreement's already been executed and it's in operation. And now we're asked to approve
That's
a
the same thing.
permit. But it's already done deal.
Well,
I just don't understand it.
I'll defer to our town manager, but the applicant is is required to fulfill our zoning code and permitting requirements as part of operating the site. And because the Board of Adjustment only has specific meeting dates, this was the earliest opportunity to take care of that.
This is
Yeah.
almost like an emergency where we're now catching up with the paperwork, basically. It was an emergency, it's operating, because it was very time sensitive. And now we're coming into compliance, basically.
It's a formality.
I was trying to put
I
that,
understand what Jeff said.
Yeah.
I agree. It's an
Yeah.
emergency. It needed to be.
but I'm with Mr. Foster on that. I agree. I mean, here,
It just,
now we're approving it, but I get it. It had to be up, it had to be running. We couldn't let it just pile up somewhere. It had to be piled up here so it could be taken care of. So,
Yes, and just for further clarification, there was also a permit requirement that did not have to come in front of the Board of Adjustment that the county fulfilled prior to opening as well. So when working with the county, because of the emergency use that we were going forward was that we worked as diligently as possible as partners to ensure that what could be permitted and approved through staff could be done, taken care of, put on the books. And then at the earliest opportunity, bring the remaining one, which is the temporary use permit, to the Board of Adjustment for consideration.
and I agree with that. It's just, I know that there's gonna be some questions.
Sure, absolutely.
Just to elaborate on one of those items, so yeah, I appreciate what the town manager said, that staff did already issue a watershed permit for the operation, because again, we're in a water supply watershed, and any land disturbance has to meet that requirement as well.
If it pleases the chair, if I may make one more comment.
Go ahead.
Mr. Malachek mentioned earlier that Marcus Jones is the applicant, and I dare say I would never want to speak for Marcus Jones. He is much more eloquent than I am. But in our conversation as well, I would just want to reiterate, I think he would be okay with me saying that the county understands, obviously, going through these permitting processes. And if at any point during the permitting process, there are questions or concerns, that he and the county are not just willing, that they are a partner within this to make sure that they meet the agreement and meet the requirements necessary to fulfill the temporary use permit.
I have one question about attachment C, under D. There's a reference to chip mills. I know what an asphalt plant is, I know what a concrete plant is, but could you give me a definition of what a chip mill is?
is that like a tub grinder?
One moment.
Makes mulch. Like a mulch yard.
Hundred is where you give us this little cheat sheet about potential conditions for temporary usage permit. And it's talking about buffers, and it says 300 feet for grinding operation. Are there going to be, and then it says, and then the operating hours is 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Does that mean that somebody can be there from 8 in the morning to 6 in the evening grinding?
Yes, under the current time limit, as per the agreement, the facility is open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. for loading and unloading vehicles. The site must be shut down by 6 p.m. So no more trucks may enter after 5 p.m. The idea is that they start to shut down that operation. By 6 p.m. there is a full shutdown of the site.
See it happen, but conceivably it could happen, that there would be an 8-hour day of shuffling.
So I would just say, as an example for today, and I believe yesterday as well, at 6 o'clock, pretty much on the dot, they shut down operation of the mulching.
They're already in
Operation.
operation.
Oh, yeah,
10-hour days.
but
Mhm,
you
yes.
still haven't exactly answered my question, or maybe you did where it's just there, that they have the right, let's call it under the lease, to grind all day.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yes.
there's for grinding operation, but as a reminder for vegetative only. But yes, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Well, there are sometimes some misconceptions about other items that may be coming into the area, as you may see from the lease, the ability for construction and demolition debris. Some people may be wondering whether or not you could mulch that. The answer is no. You can also not burn that. But I was just putting for the record and for those who may be watching at home that we're only talking about mulching of vegetative debris.
And just to answer the question about chip mills,
Yep.
believe it or not, it is defined, and I'll read this out, and I felt this did not meet the definition of a chip mill. Any non-portable wood chipping facility that stands alone and apart from a sawmill or pulp mill and whose purpose is to provide wood chips to an off-site fabricating facility, including but not limited to a paper mill or oriented strand board OSB mill.
Okay,
Cool.
it's not a chip mill.
I dare say if you would like to stand outside for a few minutes, you can see just how mobile that mulching operation is. It's actually rather impressive.
The same thing is gonna be like Roy's tree service. Putting it in and going into the truck and then taking it.
But not as noisy.
Huh?
Not as noisy.
And the
Yeah, it's a-
chipping machine itself is actually on tracks, so the chipping machine itself can move.
Okay, I'm clear on the chip mill. Any other questions for staff? The applicant, property owner, any interested party wishing to present. Um, Public comment? None? Board discussion, additional questions? Any? Motion, I would like to entertain a motion to close the hearing. The public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Final board action. Request to the board to discuss any potential conditions for the temporary use permit.
So we need to make it, first we need to make a motion to approve the permit, right? And then or make,
Since
Sure.
this is
What-
not quasi judicial, there is no standard practice. So if it's the board's pleasure, you can discuss conditions if you'd like to. You don't have to vote on those individual conditions, but at least provide us with consensus what those conditions are. So then when there's a motion and a vote on the temporary use permit itself, we can at least record what those conditions are. And again, the idea would be that this is the precursor to me issuing a zoning permit. And so those conditions would just carry forward to the zoning permit, but are also reflected in other legal documents and laws. Correct.
I'd like to propose conditions. And that'd be that adhere to the submitted site plan on the debris site. Adhere to the buffer exhibit. Need to outline that more than that. Storm debris site operations shall be at least 100 feet from all property lines and on-site structures, 100 feet from surface waters and 300 feet for mulch grinding operations. They adhere to the operating hours of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. contained in the lease agreement, that the dates of the temporary use permit mirror current lease expiration date of August 8th, 2025. That's you wanted.
As that motion is presented, can I suggest maybe to add that if the lease agreement gets extended, that automatically our conditions, temporary use permit gets extended, so it's linked, so we don't have to come back for a formality.
I see no issue with that. Yeah.
That being said, I'd like to amend the condition of that the temporary use permit can mirror the life of the current the lease to include any future
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Then I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the temporary use permit with the conditions as already voted on.
Make a motion to approve it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Approved. Then we're done. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, announcement, next regular scheduled meeting, February 11th, 2025. We don't know anything.
I'll
Okay,
just say
it's
that
the-
that's our normal organizational meeting
Perfect.
where we'll have the election of the chair and the
Okay.
vice chair, and due to Councilman-elect Moore rolling off the board, there may be a new member at that time as well.
Yep. Okay, perfect. Next, motion to adjourn.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn. Thank